Welcome to the Ascension of the Chessmen podcast. I'm your host, Mytty. Today's guest is a spiritual seeker, sovereign being, and activist. Ladies and gentlemen, hobbits and fairies, give a warm welcome to Nicholas Peter Ergero.
Hey, Andre, thank you so much for having me on, man. It's an honor.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for live streaming this, brother.
Yeah,
I,
super
I
simple.
feel like if you get two guys together, eventually they're going to figure it out, and that's what happens. So
Yes.
we made it work. Yeah, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. It's truly an honor. And so happy to have you. I'm very impressed with your interviewing style and just the work you're doing, the content you're covering, the guests you're having on. Just amazing conversations, man, and makes me super proud to see another young stud coming up, doing his thing and not afraid to speak his mind.
I really, really appreciate that. I'm also very honored. This is the second time I've ever been asked to be interviewed, and it's really humbling. I can't believe it. Just being able to impact one person for me is enough. And just knowing, and I always try to stress how I'm just a human being. You know, I still have so many flaws. I'm still battling with like sometimes video games or with marijuana or something like that. I'm still battling with other things. So I'm not perfect. I'm not on some high horse, just because I'm on here and I'm talking to people that I really admire. It doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. I'm just trying to do what I can because otherwise I'm like, what am I really doing here? If I have this information and I'm not speaking, what good am I doing?
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, I totally agree, man. I for years was listening to podcasts, listening in on the conversation, but not actively creating the conversation. I was, creating the conversations where I could with friends that would listen, and the small group of people in my community that I could actually talk to about these things that would, actually be actively listening and responding to it. But just having a podcast now, getting to do this on a regular basis is truly a dream come true, man. And just surreal every day to be doing what I'm doing and getting to share it with the world. Because it opens up the conversation for others, man. And you never know, like there could be just a split 10-second clip from any of your shows where someone heard that at just the right time, on just the right day in their life that, lifted them up a bit, got them to think a little differently, like really changed their mind on something, or, made them do something productive that day that they otherwise wouldn't have done. And I'm not saying we're saving lives out here. If we do, awesome. But like, I think we have the potential to, like there's so much potential that can come from just speaking your truth, being yourself, opening up. We close off so much in our society. It's embarrassing for men to share emotions, but why is that? Like we're emotional creatures too, and like we need to shed a tear every once in a while. Sometimes we have to talk about shit that's been bogging us down, whatever it may be. But anybody that can embody that and be living that out truly humbles me to see it for myself, but also encourages and inspires me to hold myself accountable and continue to do the work, because that's what we're all here for, is to not only better ourselves but better the world around us and leave it a little better than when we got here. And it's just an honor to meet another soul that's doing the work, brother. So I encourage you.
Yeah, I very much appreciate it so much. And then when I was getting your links compiled for this interview and putting it into the StreamYard before just yesterday, just seeing all the links you had, like just the way that you've like the amount of content you've already created. Like I said off air, you have like 4 times as many interviews than I have. And I still didn't finish that other one I was listening to, but it was really good. And I like the way you speak, and I like how the conversation is just like like a normal kind of just sit down, we're discussing things type of thing. It wasn't really like an interview. It didn't feel like that per se. It felt like more of a conversation, which I liked. Yeah. It was just more natural and flowing. And then when you're talking about emotions, very much so. I totally agree, because just last year in the beginning of January, February, I was posting stuff about my porn addiction, and I was literally crying on like in the video, and I'm humbling myself and I'm expressing this stuff, and it's super awkward, and it's on my channel, you know, it's still there. I'm not afraid to keep that there. And I remember I had another I got well, actually I was interviewed by a third person. I apologize for that. And we were talking about addictions and stuff, and I talked about how in my childhood, me and one of my brothers, we did stuff, you know, and I wasn't that young, and I who the hell is going to really open up and say that type of thing on air? And I'm saying that live right now, and I'm reiterating that point. That's what happened in my life.
Brother. Yeah.
And it's
courage.
yeah, and it's and like yeah, it's just it's very difficult. It can be very awkward, but I mean, I think people start, like, even like with you, you're doing mostly audio podcast. People don't have to do the video. They don't have to be on camera. They don't have to be live either. They could just have it pre-recorded, you know, and then just post it up afterwards. It doesn't have to be where it's live, you're on camera, you gotta make sure you're dressed up nice. It's all nerve-wracking and all that stuff, because I still get nervous every single time. And I sometimes I take some kratom just to kind of mellow out a little bit. But yeah, it can be overwhelming, and learning some of the technology or investing in some of the stuff, especially nowadays with the inflation and all that stuff that's going on. It can be tough. I'm lucky enough to have been able to get a new microphone, so hopefully my audio is better if people can hear me. And but yeah, it's an investment, and especially with me doing the video side of it, I try to take some of these videos, these interviews, and I splice them up, or not splice them up, but I edit them, add slides or images, and I put some music maybe in the background just to spice it up, and I put it on BitChute or Odyssey. And that takes time. So a lot of this stuff can take time. It just depends. Like with you, it could be a lot easier just doing audio and then posting it up, and then you use Spreaker, which I just found out from you, post it to 20, 30 other places. So it just saves a ton of time, you know, and you don't have to do 100%. Any editing. So it's just back to back, all these interviews, and you're getting a lot of stuff done. You're creating a lot of content. It's just in a different form. So for me, I can easily find you probably on one of these apps and just listen to you at work, you know, and super, super easy, super, super accessible. So it's awesome. I just want to stress again how much I really appreciate you reaching out to me, because it's crazy that like, you literally were watching some of my stuff. You were a viewer and you contacted me, and it's really fulfilling. And I got to keep that in mind, because I can still be battling with depression and being negative and not being very happy about where I am in my life and all this stuff. But I've gotten a lot of good interviews. I've made a lot of traction in some cases, and I've hopefully inspired more than a few people. And it's and I could still feel that way, even knowing that I am making some sort of impact, even though, like you said, we're not changing the world or saving the world. So yeah.
And like the slightest step forward, brother, is still a step forward. You know, just anytime you're feeling like that, reflect on where you were a month ago, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. You know, in the big picture, the grand scheme, like, you're further along than you were just yesterday. You know, no matter what you're stuck in, whether, you know, you gave into one of your vices for that day, like, forgive yourself, man. Like, we're hard on ourselves for being fucking hard on ourselves. Like, that's how far it goes. And I think even in those moments, we just got to laugh at ourselves and be like, it's okay, man. Like, there's always tomorrow. Like, the sun's going to come up again. Like, we got a new opportunity to do this, a clean slate, and, you know, show up better the next time, man. There's always lessons in the failures, man. And that's been a huge lesson for me. There was something else I was going to touch on related to what you were just talking about. But until I remember that, I'm not going to skip over my traditional question for every guest on my show, man, is always, for those who aren't familiar, can you explain what it is that you do? And I guess what woke you up to realizing maybe there's more to this life than you were originally taught or thought?
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm going to correct you. My last name is pronounced Ujero, but I'm not going to fault you for that because everyone gets it wrong. So don't worry about
I
it
should have asked
whatsoever.
you before.
I know. I was
I'm the
thinking
same
about
way,
it.
bro.
I was forgetting that this was your podcast, so I forgot to mention that because even substitute teachers could never get it right.
Yeah,
So my name is
I'll
Nicholas Peter
correct that.
Ujero. Oh yeah, it's fine. So my name is Nicholas Peter Ujero. I'm 29 years old. I live in Illinois. I have a YouTube channel that's just what my name is, and I did like gardening videos at first. A couple empowering videos. I talked about kids in school while I was a teacher's aide, and I told them that I made that video, so I gave them some nuggets of information that way. And then, then I started doing Camtasia, so I started learning video editing software. And so then I was sprucing up my videos. I was doing maybe like a read along of Operation Northwoods, which was that CIA document where they were talking about a false flag and with involving Cuba.
Yep.
And that one was really good. And then I left to this job, Now Foods, over vaccine, or not vaccine, but mask and temperature mandates. And I made a video about it. And then that got the attention of this gentleman, John Coleman, and he reached out to me for an interview, which I totally accepted. And then so from there,
That's
I was
awesome.
able to learn some of the ins and outs of the process of setting up an interview, how to communicate all the time, getting questions ahead of time, and just being organized, having people come on before the show starts just to make sure everything's fine, audio, video, just reiterate the questions, just so we're all on board, everything flows naturally. So from just that experience, I just said, okay, well, I can try to do this. So I reached out to people that I found inspiring, and that's just how I started doing a lot more interviews, and that's been probably the bulk of my content for the most part. And then also last year, that's when I started talking about my porn and sex and cannabis and video game addictions and all that stuff. I was really letting that stuff out, and a lot of that stuff did get a lot of traction. I do feel like I hopefully helped inspire a lot of people through that process of shadow work, and that was horrible. And that process was really bad. And
Dark out of the soul.
and I'm still, even with that process and knowing how well it helped me out, I'm still petrified of doing more because I just know how uncomfortable that was. And it gives me a lot of bad feelings just thinking about it. But what really got me kind of going and thinking about what else is like what's really kind of going on or getting a different perspective was watching the Zeitgeist documentaries. My brother told me about Zeitgeist, so we watched the first one together, and then after that, when I realized that there was two other ones, so this was April 2016. So the third documentary was already out for 5 years. So I watched all three of them, and then I got really, really into that. I was watching a lot of his Peter Joseph's talks and a lot of that stuff. So I was just really delving into that. Oh, we don't need money. We can do all this stuff. And then I got into like Hidden Secrets of Money, Mike Maloney. It's a YouTube series. That was really good. And then I got into James Corbett, and then Mark Passio. That really blew my mind. That was probably the biggest thing was learning more about the occult and natural law and all that stuff, that because no one is talking about that. Even these people, even James Corbett or Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond, and even what's his name? How am I not getting it? Derek Bros. Like even Derek Bros. He understands natural law, but I don't see them really talking about it basically at all. So I see this as really the fundamental thing, the end all be all. So Mark Passio really, really was the one that really opened up my eyes to how deep this can really go. So that was kind of my process. It was just a slow kind of burn,
Yeah, super similar, man. Mine was around 2012, just before the whole, I don't know if you remember the end of the world Mayan prophecy thing, but I was just coming out of a heavy indoctrination in religion. I was baptized Lutheran, was in Lutheran school for a while. I couldn't read in second grade, so my parents had to pull me out and put me into public school. And I was able to learn how to read properly and, get up to pace with the other kids. And then my brother got in some trouble around that time, and my parents decided they were going to send us to Catholic school. So I went through all that, Lutheran, evangelical for a while, and then Catholic. So, as I started to wake up to these things, what did it for me was The Union, the business behind getting high. That was probably the first documentary that really queued me up to holy shit, we're being lied to on massive levels as far as the uses and the potential of industrial hemp and all the things it can do for the world, all the uses it has. You know, all the lies about cannabis. I know that might be a sensitive subject as of late, but that was my initial awakening to like lies, man. Like as far as propaganda goes, and then it went to Loose Change and Zeitgeist shortly after that. Another big one for me was Transcendent Man with Ray Kurzweil, which was about the future of technology and AI coming full on with man and the singularity that was coming in the very soon future, and the accelerating rate that technology was advancing. And so that freaked me out a little bit. And I was just kind of lost spiritually because I left the church and I was like, do I become an atheist or do I? Because the only way I knew how to connect to God at that point in my life was this literal version, like through the church. Like there was no other way. And, because you're taught the Jesus way is the one true way, and that's the only way. And I nothing wrong to those who go to church. I just took a different path, and finding out about all the massive pedophilia going on within the Catholic Church, I wanted nothing to do with that, so I got out as quickly as I could. And at that time, I was searching for a church because that was the only way I knew how. I found this Pentecostal church, really connected with my pastor. He was going through a lot of similar stuff that I went through around that time in my life. Before he decided he was going to become a pastor, he was smoking a lot of weed, drinking a lot, partying a lot, and just not really having a sense of purpose or meaning. And he was on this acid trip, and this chessboard flew off this table and it landed perfectly on the ground. And there was one piece still standing on the board that was perfectly standing up, and it was a white king. So he saw that as a sign that he was meant for something greater, or I guess this was his call to go to Bible school and become a pastor. And I always found that fascinating. And, I was getting into the secret societies of the world and, looking into ancient Anunnaki and ancient civilizations, giants in the Bible. And I was questioning these things in my Bible studies one on one with this pastor and getting pretty actively involved in the church. And I had been going to the church actively for like 2 years at this point, and I just was constantly questioning myself, like, why am I not changing? I thought church was supposed to change me. Like, why am I still, wanting to smoke weed every day and party all the time, like just chase after girls, just those lower impulses. And I had the opportunity to try some LSD with some friends. I was hesitant at first, but then I recalled the story with my pastor, and my friends gave me reassurance. And that experience really woke me up to realizing, we all are connected. Like we are all one consciousness, split up into different pieces, and we all come from the same source, and therefore we should treat each other as brothers and sisters, and treat each other the way we want to be treated. I mean, it was that direct experience with something higher than myself that made me put away all my selfish desires, just had that humility from that day on, that there's so much more to this that I didn't understand. And what I was looking for in a church, I finally experienced directly. Like I was taking someone else's word for it versus having that direct experience. And it's not to advocate like go do acid, but I'm just saying, like, whatever vehicle that gets you there, whether it's breath work, meditation, just cleaning your house every day, getting in a good routine, whatever it may be that just like makes you see a silver lining in your life. There's so many pathways to get there, but that was just the pathway I took, man. And from that moment on, I started to look more into plant medicine and meditation and breath work, and really started to balance myself out with the spirituality compared to all the deception and lies and corruption in the world. Because if that's all you're focused on all the time, like, good luck, like, staying in a positive state of mind, man. Like, it'll be doom and gloom at points, and it's hard to snap out of that. And spirituality kind of gave me a sort of balance throughout all that struggle going through the process of learning we've been lied to our whole lives.
Yeah, and to kind of go into that kind of journey, like for me, it was my dad is still like a Christian Catholic, and would tell me
Mm.
that Jesus is going to come down and save us. It's going to be 1,000 years of good, and then he's going to do battle with the devil, and then he's going to be cast away forever, all that stuff. And so, like I took that in, I accepted it at the time. I did believe in karma. I didn't understand it fully, and I
Mm.
kind of separated it from God at the time because obviously I didn't
Mm.
know. And so karma was always a constant for me, but my belief in God and whatever was wavering here and there. I was never an atheist, but I knew I was seeing how the Christian or the religion, the exoteric kind of religion, was not what it really is. Like it just
Dry.
seemed like it wasn't. Yeah, it seemed like it wasn't cracked up, or wasn't what it was cracked up to be. And then the whole
Yeah.
zeitgeist, that whole beginning section, really kind of made me become kind of iffy about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, then the whole Mark Passio thing kind of, and watching him and learning more about it, I was understanding, okay, karma and God, it's the same exact thing. That's why, like, I
Mm.
had like an intuitive understanding. I didn't really understand like some of the laws, like the basic kind of laws of don't steal. My mom would tell me the golden rule, treat others the way you'd like to be treated, but it was never like a concrete, fully defined thing that we understood. And then as a kid, you don't really kind of like really grasp that whole kind of big picture aspect of, yeah, if I do this somewhere down the line, something's going to come back around. Yeah, I was just kind of lost. Like, I just didn't have good direction in that sort of
Yeah.
spiritual sense. It wasn't until just like 2017, 2018 that I really started understanding that a lot more. And, but then again, I was still hurting people, I was a porn addict, very much
Mm.
so. It was horrible. My frontal, my my frontal lobe was not even working properly. My decision making
Right.
process was not working properly. I was literally a beast. My thoughts, emotions, and
Yeah.
actions were all in the reptile brain. That was the main goal for me, and had a lot of self loathing. Um, had cheated on a few people, so my self esteem was already low because of that. I
Mm.
wasn't like a robot. I did experience feelings, and I understood that I was hurting people. So it didn't help me at all. I just kept shitting on myself even more. And so that just
Mm.
kind of kept compounding, and then the porn got worse and all that stuff. So it was
Self-sabotage. Yeah.
total self-sabotage. Yeah. Once someone started getting feelings for me, boop, I'm retracting. I
Yeah.
don't really want
You're
to deal
like,
with
I don't
this.
want to feel that shit.
Yeah, and especially because I felt like my options were being limited. And so I always
Mm.
needed something new and exciting. So of
Right.
course, if you're seeing the same person constantly, it's going to get old, or it's going to get old. It's not really going to be old, but just in my mind,
Right.
it's not functioning correctly. So
Right.
yeah,
You want that fancy new toy fresh
yeah,
out the box. Yeah. Yeah, dude. I've been there, man.
yeah.
I it took me a while to take relationships seriously because honestly, like, I didn't have my first serious relationship till I was like 22. And that was the longest relationship I've ever had. I'm still in it. We got back together, but um, yeah, I mean, I think it's so easy, man, just based on all the societal influences around us and entertainment and, just quote unquote locker room talk, like just the way guys talk to each other. And, it's been a demoralization for decades, but, just the music we listened to growing up, like just the trash, man, that comes in and out. And, you know, we're living that out because if it's what we're plugging into, like we're going to start to act like that too. And yeah, just how readily accessible porn is everywhere you look. Like you could get on Google in 5 seconds, like you can have endless pages of porn, like right at your fingertips. And like for kids growing up in this world that have cell phones at such a young age, like knowing that they can have that too, if there's not parental controls on the phone, like that's scary, man. And
I was about to make that
I
point too. The kids with
yeah.
cell phones. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's tragic, man. I had a cell phone in 6th grade. I had a flip phone and I was the cool kid because I went to school a half hour away. So my parents said I could have one that young because they could get a hold of me that way. And I didn't really think much of it. But looking back on it, dude, like that's a young age to have a cell phone. Like, why do you need a cell phone in 6th grade? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like that was then, like that was a flip phone, like the images you could hardly see them, they were blurry, but like now you got HD in your pocket, like it's that accessible. And I think to really do the shadow work and analyze where that all started and like unreeling the the role, if you will. I the analogy I was trying to use escaped me there, but you know, just um, tracing it back to where it all started. Like, was there a time in my childhood where I was I was over at a buddy's house and he said, "Oh, come to this back room, look in this drawer," or you know, some event. You know, anyone listening, I'm sure it comes to mind right as I'm saying it, but you can remember that first time you had access to, oh, that's what a vagina is. This is what a penis is. Like, you know, just learning, but not only that, but like seeing it in your face and like, oh, like that was a lot sooner than I expected to see that. Like now my life is completely different as far as like how I see the opposite sex. Like, are they human beings? Are they like my sisters and brothers? Or am I seeing them as, you know, merely animals or something to take advantage of? And I feel like that's the trap it can create, especially when you get started at a young age, man. And I got exposed very young, man. I think I was in like 2nd grade the first time I seen pornography. And, you know, from then on, you know, like I remember being one of the first kids in my class, like bringing that shit up in class. And, you know, coming to a Catholic school from a public school, you're like the bad kid. And everyone's looking at you like, what are these words? And what is he talking about? And I didn't know any better, you know, like I was just trying to expose these kids to what I thought every kid was exposed to because I was already exposed to it. And little did I know I was like planting seeds of destruction in these people too. And I didn't know any better, you know, I just thought that's how it was. And, you know, getting addicted to porn at a young age, I can see how it impacted me on so many levels, whether it be relationships, you know, infidelity, you know, just having loyalty, having dignity, you know, getting into just the topic of, you know, what a lot of adult film stars are taking part in. You know, there's a lot of rape going on, sex trafficking. I mean, there's a lot of darkness within that industry. And I'm not casting judgment on anyone who chooses that way of life, whether that's actively looking at porn, choosing that lifestyle, making a living doing that. But knowing that what you're taking part in is, you know, you inherently know when you're doing right and wrong. And, you know, if it's of your highest good or of your lowest good, or you know, anything below your highest good is obviously not serving you to your full potential. And for anyone out there doing that, like, can you ask yourself that and give yourself a reaffirming yes that this is me living up to my highest potential? I'm gonna say probably not, dude. I don't know about you.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was exposed to it at a young age as well. Um, I mean, I'm gonna bring up another another story that is not comfortable, but like even the brother that I was actually I was physical with, there was times where there was a time where we watched porn together in the same room, and we were like touching ourselves, like obviously not,
Mm,
we weren't touching each other, but we were touching ourselves, watching it in the same room. Like how awkward is that? How weird is that?
right.
And that was in my young, like what was I, 7th grade, and that's not even young. I was
Yeah.
12 already, and it was just like we found my dad's porn, like his VHS
Yeah.
tapes, and so that was great. So like father like son, and
Right.
so yeah, it was yeah, that's bad. And then yeah, like seeing some of the, or being with some of these people, like some women, and being intimate. Sometimes I couldn't keep an erection. I would get,
Right.
I would lose my erection because I know exactly what it was. It was because I wasn't getting turned on enough. It wasn't exciting
Yeah.
enough, and I would literally
Yep.
have to try to think of other things in my mind, and that's
Dude,
horrible. That's
I've been
so
there.
gross, man.
So gross.
That's so terrible. And
Yeah.
being on the receiving end of that, and if they were to
Right.
know that, that's, I mean,
Oh,
me just losing the erection in itself
heartbreaking,
is
dude.
already terrible. Talk about your
Yeah.
self-esteem going down the toilet, and
Yeah.
it's just so brutal. This gentleman, Enzo, I love Enzo. Thank you so much for coming on. I know this isn't my channel, or
Anthony.
this isn't my show right now, but he
Hey,
actually had a
pipe
question.
in.
He was asking, do you consider religion indoctrination from childhood as brainwashing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think everything serves a purpose, man, and I think everything happens for a reason. So I can't undo anything that's happened in my life, whether I chose it or not. And that was this is the life I was given. So the fact I had to grow up with that upbringing, and go through some of the trauma I went through at home, a lot of neglect, a lot of double standards as far as this is what's going on in the church. This is how we act when we answer the door or we go into church, but outside of the church and when the doors are closed, we're going to act a different way. And I just saw a lot of that, man. I think religion is great for a starting point and for finding morals, but at the end of the day, you have to experience that source of connection to something higher than yourself. Um, in a firsthand experience, and only when you've had that experience can you acknowledge it and speak on it. Otherwise, up until that point, you've had your direct experience, you're just going on someone else's word about their experience, and that's all good if it's helping your life and helping you grow and helping you stay accountable as far as knowing right from wrong. But um it's still someone else's experience. I mean, you don't know for sure. And I as I said, man, I think it serves a purpose as far as knowing right from wrong. But I think there's other ways you can do that. And I want to make a distinction too. Like, I've honestly read more out of the Bible since I left organized religion than when I was in organized religion. And at one point, I was going to mass 6 out of 7 days a week when I was in sixth grade. We had to go before school every day, and then we'd go on the weekend, Saturday or Sunday. So I was heavily in the church, man. And I left the church and then I went back to a different church because I didn't like the church I left. So I thought going to a different church would solve the problem, and it just never filled that void I was looking to fill, man. And no disrespect to anyone going to church, I that was just what I learned from it, man. I think there's always something to learn, and since then, I've really learned what Jesus's whole message was, and that was just to, um, you know, follow that example of how to conduct yourself as a human being, like respect other people, hold people accountable, hold yourself accountable, and be a role model for others to embody as well. Like, we're all just reflections of what that Christ figure embodied. Whether he existed or not, that's a whole other debate. But I don't think that really matters if he did or not. I think it's the message, and that goes with anything. You have to separate the message from the messenger, because, the minute your messenger falls from grace on the pedestal you put him on, and, shit gets real and you see him eye to eye, then, it's not the same as it used to be. Like, your whole perception of it all changes. And getting to look into the more esoteric side, the astrological side, you know, just the general message of the text, of any holy text, any ancient book. I think there's so much to be found, but you have to look at it from multiple levels, and that's where I was wrong, man. I was just seeing it from the literal perspective, and I'm not saying the literal can't still be true historically speaking. It's a possibility, but to say that's the only way you can look at the Bible, which is, I would argue, the way most organized religions see the book they're following, is just in the literal historical interpretation. They don't get into the more mystical, esoteric teachings within that. And that's up to you to seek out and find. Like, we all have that responsibility. Not everyone's going to take that responsibility on their own, and they want to have someone else do it for them. And that's why they go to church. But I was tired of that model. So I left. That's my answer to that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I know this is your show for all intents and
Hey,
purposes, but I appreciate it.
yeah, dude.
And then he was
Hey,
asking
open
about
questions.
porn at what age. For me, it was probably 8 or 9, I think. I definitely think it was. I mean, I was masturbating even before I could even produce anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I was
Same.
it was already a coping mechanism for me, and I wasn't even
Yeah.
realizing it at the time.
Dude, just realizing how addictive I was to sex and pornography, and, just an erection and getting off, like, that revelation early on in my life, whether I was able to correct it at that time, it just really held me accountable, in the sense of, when I started to try things, like I got a cigarette shoved in my mouth my freshman year. I didn't really pick it up. I was more into cigars, like Swisher Sweets and flavored cigars at that age, Black and Milds, but it was never like a daily thing for me, at least in those days. And I had tried alcohol for the first time. So I tried tobacco and alcohol before I tried cannabis. And cannabis, I was always taught in Dare like it was the gateway drug. And so there was that whole thing. But it just made me think of, that initial addiction to sex and pornography, that really made me see I have a very addictive fucking personality. Excuse my French. But like, the minute, I started trying these other things like tobacco, then it was alcohol, and then it was cannabis. Other things started getting put in front of me. I did try LSD for the first time. What did it for me was the Beatles making a song about it. They were, recognized around the world, arguably called the best band of all time. So I was like, if they're making a song dedicated to this, like, there must be something here. And then it was the Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher, Doc Ellis, threw a no-hitter while he was high on LSD, which is hard to do even sober. And I was like, the fact he could throw a no-hitter on LSD, like, I need to try this at least once. So that's what gave me the courage to try that. But outside of that, man, I was very strict with myself about what drugs I would do and what drugs I would never do. And it was always cocaine, meth, and heroin I was never going to touch. And, living, speaking now, man, like, I've been offered coke probably 30, 40 times in my life, and I've said no every single time. And I have snorted vodka on one occasion when I was very young, and I'm ashamed of that, but I have never snorted cocaine, and I'm happy to say that, because especially with the fentanyl going on these days, man, you don't know what's in that shit. Like, unless you're testing what you're doing, like, no disrespect if you choose to use cocaine, like, I'm not going to judge you for that, but I hope you're testing what you're putting into your system.
That's a good point because I just recently did it not too long ago, and I did not test it. So
Yeah,
that's a
always
good
test
point.
your drugs, friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I just
yeah.
worry for my friends out here, man. Fentanyl, it takes one little bump, dude, and
And
you're
what
overdosing.
what's fentanyl again?
Fentanyl has the strongest, God, I forget the way to put it. It's like, overdose ratio. So, you can literally take, like, the point of a pen and overdose on this shit. Like, it's that potent of a pharmaceutical drug and toxic that it can literally knock you out dead just based on the smallest amount you can fathom. And this is what people are cutting into black market drugs these days. And I know there could be a lot of scare tactics with that as well, but fentanyl is no joke. I mean, um, a recent case was Mac Miller a couple years ago. His coke was laced with fentanyl. And he was our age, man. I'm 29 as well. And I grew up listening to Mac in high school. And, to see him die at 27, just because he didn't test his coke is horrific, man. It's like no one should have to go through that just because they're trying to, experience and have some fun with coke. Like I understand that, like do your thing, but like just be safe about it.
Yeah, definitely. And like with you, like I totally agree. Like the whole addictive personality, totally. And
Yeah,
like the video games was always a coping mechanism, a way of escaping, and then that in tandem with the porn and all that stuff, and then it became the sex, and then it became, and at 13 the drugs or like the weed and all that stuff, and I was abusing the hell out of that for a long time. It was on and
yeah.
off, but like I would take maybe a couple months off, but I could never find that balance with it, basically ever.
Mm,
So I totally
yeah,
empathize with you on that one. And then yeah, meth and heroin, no thanks. I wouldn't. No, I never
mm,
would. I've never been offered it. Thank God. I don't know anybody that would that's
yeah.
doing it that would offer it to me. But
Right.
yeah, I would never take that at all.
Yeah.
That's brutal. No way.
Yeah, I also have friends that got into meth, that I grew up with, and I got robbed. I got my Xbox 360 stolen from me, my MacBook. I had to. I ended up filing a police report, and around that time when I got robbed, and the police turned on me and made me be out to be the victim or the villain, and I was making up the story, and I was racial profiling, and all this crazy shit. So I ended up dropping the case and going on it about my own. Got my got my MacBook back, never got my Xbox back, but it was a lesson learned, man. Like just how much meth can change someone, man. Like it'll make you turn on those you love most. Like literally treat them like shit. Like just like porn can do to you and treat women like shit. Like drugs can do that too. Like everything in moderation, man. And for me, cannabis was always different for me as far as how I viewed it. I always saw it as it wasn't addictive. It was medicinal. I'm using it for my stress. I could name a million uses for it. Like I always had an excuse why I could get high. And um, it just got to be too much, man. I was smoking sun up to sundown for years. And I was just, going throughout the day, spending so much money to keep up this habit. I mean, sometimes it was like 8 blunts a day, dude. Like it was a little ridiculous. And I I was smoking with a lot of people. I can't imagine all the people I've smoked with in my life, but um, I just sooner or later, I knew that I had to take a break. The thing for me was the first step was doing it in the evenings as like a reward coming home from work. That was a big hurdle to get over. Just use it with respect and like treating it as okay. There's a time and a place for this, and if I'm not using it in that time and place, I'm probably abusing it or misusing it. So that was a big hurdle for me to initially get over. And then once I started doing that, uh, I would say the thing also for me was never having to get drug tested for a job. So I never had a drug test that I had to take for any given reason. whether it be for a job. I never got in trouble to where I had to take a drug test. I mean, I got a possession charge like 10, 12 years ago. I had like a bull, but like, I just got like a ticket. Like it's decriminalized here. All you get is a traffic violation, it's $300 charge. And, I dealt with that at the time and moved on, but, I just never saw a reason to stop because I never got drug tested. And then, I, I did ayahuasca, many years after, that initial hurdle I got over, and ayahuasca made me see, myself and just the world around me so much differently, with new eyes and a new perspective of, just unconditional love, towards myself and others. It's a daily practice to keep, in front of you, and I don't have it all figured out. I'm not perfect, but, that's what really opened me up to the possibilities in front of me and how much I myself am holding myself back. It's not other people around me I'm pointing fingers at. It's not the elites controlling the world. I mean, yes, they play a role in suffering 100%, but how much am I creating myself in my own everyday life? So I started to bring a lot of that stuff to the surface, dealing with a lot of, inner child wounds that were coming out. And I remember getting back home that first time and struggling to integrate, but I was trying my best. And, I made a pact with my girlfriend, at the time. We were going to stop smoking weed for a month as just a challenge, to see if we could do it. I did cheat and smoke CBD as a placebo. I didn't get high for a whole 30 days, though, I promise you. But, because I still am connected to that smoking sensation. So I picked up vaping, nicotine, because initially where it all started was I was wanting my girlfriend. We just started dating, and I was like, I hate your cigarette, addiction, and I cannot stand the smell of it. It's gross when we kiss. Like, it's just not attractive. And she understood that. So vaping was just starting to catch on. And, so I got her off smoking to vaping. So then I started vaping, and, I used it as like a crutch to not smoke as much weed because I had the smoking sensation of, just putting the thing up to my mouth and, getting that fix. And, but it also was, allowed me to function throughout the day and didn't slow me down as much if I was inebriated while stoned. So that was a good step for me as well. Like, using the vaping, as kind of a shoulder to lean on. But then that whole 30-day, test I did to, just prove to myself I could stop, even though I was using CBD. And I only used CBD when I had the urges. I'm not saying like I was like chain smoking CBD. Like, it was just that moment I wanted to smoke throughout the day. And there was times it went away throughout that month where like I didn't have the urge at all. But just getting over those initial urges, CBD really helped. And you don't have to worry about getting high. And you can also still pass a drug test if you have, CBD. It's not always, correct on that. I don't want to lead people astray. You still can fail, but it's very unlikely. So I, was able to pass a drug test after 30 days, and, that was a huge accomplishment for me, to not have anyone to tell me to do that, but to choose to do that on my own. It's a whole different feeling you get, I feel, because it was one thing if I would have, had to get a job to quit smoking. I feel like I would have forced myself. I really would have. I just didn't want to. But you have to
Mhm.
want to do it, and that goes with anything. Like, if you're trying to quit something, you have to truly, within yourself, from the bottom of your heart, like fully want to quit, like for the bettering of yourself, like just for your health. Um, until you get to that point, like, you're always going to have struggles quitting anything because you're still attached to it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Carl Jung would always say, "What you resist persists."
Yeah. And I gotta ask you, when's your birthday?
May 13th, 92.
I was thinking for a second I was thinking we're gonna have the same birthday. Mine's August
Oh
15th.
shit. Okay,
And
gotcha.
then so you got arrested for possession at 17.
I was 19.
Ah,
Sorry.
okay.
It was because I got my only MIP of alcohol leaving a Halloween party on Halloween. My buddy was wearing a American Pie outfit and American Pie band camp, and he had the fucking pretend boner in his pants sticking out when the cop came up to us. It was pretty fucking funny looking back on it. But I was I think I was a caveman or something. I can't remember. But yeah, I was literally leaving a party because a fight broke out, and I was like, okay, the cops are definitely coming. I'm gonna be the smart adult and leave. And I was the one of 3 people that night that got an MIP at the party where the fight broke out. So it just goes to show, like, even when you think you're doing the right thing, like, cops will still fuck with you.
Yeah.
And so it was like a couple months after that, I was on diversion for the MIP, got kicked off for diversion because I was like less than a half mile from my house, had a headlight out, and got pulled over with a bowl of weed. So he just wrote me a $300 ticket. No jail time. There's no jail time in Nebraska for weed. If it's under a pound, it's for personal use. Yeah, it's decriminalized. We were one of the first states back in the 70s to decriminalize, and we'll be one of the last states to legalize. It's quite ironic.
Yeah. $300 to $400. What a joke.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Enzo, once again, was asking, did you experience depression?
Yes, various points in my life, man. I've been suicidal from a young age, and I was suicidal even before I started smoking pot. And there were some times I would associate the pot with those feelings, but I would recall the times when even before the pot I had these feelings. And I think you can point the finger at anything outside of yourself, but it always comes from within us, man. And I think you just got to trace it back to where it came from, and that's not an easy thing to do. Sometimes it's talking to a therapist you feel comfortable talking to, a life coach, just an elder that you can just be yourself and open up to. That might be the way too. Even a friend, whatever way you can get to that initial experience that created the disruption in your behaviors, you'll start to figure out where the root of the problem is.
Yeah, and when you were talking about addiction, like having that addictive kind of personality, I didn't finish it, but there's this book called what the hell is it called? Something about shadow. It's this
Mm,
gentleman Patrick Carnes. He talks about porn addiction,
mm,
and they mention how if you experience some sort of trauma as a child, whether it's physical, mental, like sexual abuse, any sort of abuse, any sort of trauma, that can definitely increase the likelihood of having
mm.
tendencies of being addicted to something or whatever it
Yeah,
may be. So it could be
yeah,
food, or it could be porn, it could be cannabis, it could be anything like that. So for me, like my
yeah.
father would hit me, and he would sometimes
Mm,
verbally abuse me and my siblings. And I was the youngest as well. So my perspective was different than my siblings. But yeah, for sure, that definitely fed into
yeah,
my kind of mentality in that sense. Um, yeah,
yeah.
it's really sad. And when I did my shadow work last year, it was grueling process, very very grueling, very very awkward. Having to tell my own mom, some of the stuff that I was looking at through porn, and the whole thing was just horrible. It was very awkward. I was thinking I was going to get shunned and completely like just like completely shunned from my whole family, but yeah, and then just separating myself from the porn and not doing it anymore because I was just so disgusted with myself, and I was just scared of doing it again because I just didn't want to be like that because I was in the middle of losing this girl that I already hurt really bad the year before. Huge long
Mm,
story. I'm not going to get into it, but um, through just the process of avoiding like the video games and the soon after that cannabis and all that stuff, I was really able to see with such clarity and see like where all this kind of stuff was starting from my parents always fighting and then getting
mm,
physically hit, not having really a lot of confidence, not being a good speaker. Like I was afraid to give my order at Taco Bell, like I
Yeah.
wasn't, so
Yeah.
I was always a really shy kid, really nervous.
Mm,
And then I remember I had a really big crush in first grade. She never liked me. And then I liked her until like,
rejection.
yeah. And so I liked her until fifth grade until she moved. And so she
Mm,
never liked me. So that definitely didn't help me. Girls usually really didn't like me and all that stuff. And then I was accused of rape in eighth grade, got beat up for
yeah.
it, was called a rapist for 2 years into high school. So that didn't help me
Yeah.
out. None of that stuff was helping me. So just, yeah, not feeling worthy. And then also the porn was already a
Yeah.
constant for me. So that was a way for me to kind of numb it a bit too.
Yeah.
So all that stuff just fed into each other just
Yeah.
continuously. So it was, I didn't really, I mean, I knew all those things. I still remembered those things, but I just wasn't putting all the pieces together to be like, oh, okay, this is so simple. And that's what the
Yeah.
shadow work is. It's really just figuring that out and having that clarity. And I still got to do a lot more shadow work. And it's extremely uncomfortable. It's extremely painful at times. But I mean, you come out feeling so much lighter at the end of it. And I'm still scared of it. And I know how good it is.
Yeah.
So for someone that hasn't even started, I can't even imagine how difficult that is, especially nowadays with all the trauma that everyone's going through at this moment.
Yeah. Totally, man. And a lot of people aren't ready for that, and I feel that's what keeps a lot of people from plant medicine. It's not just the programming and the propaganda of a man on acid jumped out of a 40-story building and committed suicide. Like the scare stories you see, or shamans taking advantage of people at ayahuasca resorts, like you only hear like the bad sides a lot of times, but if you actively investigate it from your own inner intuition and kind of explore all options and come to your own conclusions about these things that were labeled Schedule 1 with no medical value. um, I would argue a lot of these things do have medical value, and I've seen directly how they've impacted a lot of people. I mean, myself, personally speaking on experience of how it's changed my life. I mean, yeah, I had to walk the walk. I had to, take the action and, quit making excuses for myself. But it kind of gave me the kick in the butt I needed. And, yeah, you were talking about shadow work, so this is what brought this up because um, up until I did ayahuasca, man, like I saw plant medicines as one thing. I didn't even really see them like that. I just called them psychedelics, and I thought, if you want to experience some Zen moments and maybe have a little fun, laugh a lot, take some mushrooms or do some LSD, but like the whole ayahuasca thing was a whole different approach. Like you have side by side integration. This is bringing out inner child work. Addressing what came up throughout your experience and why did it come up. Like, yeah, it might have came up as these images or these experiences, these characters, these deities, these entities, but what were they representing? Like, what was the underlying message trying to be revealed to you? And, just getting to see it from that perspective, like, wow, there is a lot of therapeutic work going on here between you and your highest self. And, you know, getting to sit in that space of healing and just seeing people cry for the first time in, decades, grown men and grown women just sitting together in harmony and watching each other better themselves and want to even go down and do ayahuasca takes a lot of courage, but um, being open to share through that space with complete strangers, it really opens your heart up. And I say to anyone that has never done a psychedelic, a plant medicine, like you're opening yourself up to everything you've been running from your entire life. And if you're not ready to face that, if you're not ready to open up that closet and watch the skeletons come out to play, like you still got work to do on yourself, and you're not ready to see yourself in the mirror. And it'll teach you pretty quickly, like who you really are deep within. And if you're somebody that drinks every night and isn't ever sitting with your own shit, just sitting with yourself, observing your thoughts. Why am I unconsciously going to this fast food joint every day at this time, or whatever habit toxic habit it may be in your life? Like, we all are watching these thoughts come and go, and we are creating them as well. Like, we have the choice to let them control us or take control of them, and shift them in a different direction for our greatest good. So I think shadow work is the true embodiment of the integration of that mystical experience that you can encounter through various modalities and pathways. I think you could even experience that in the church, and it could get you on that that path you're walking down. But at the end of the day, you just got to do the work, because anybody can go do ayahuasca and then think, oh, it's ayahuasca that changed them. So they just got to continually drink ayahuasca every weekend. But I'm not saying that's the solution. Like, there's people that aren't getting the full message. Like, if you're not taking time to integrate in between your experiences, you're not getting the message. And a lot of times you'll pay karma for that. You will have a bad experience if you're rushing back to the medicine before you're ready, and before you even integrated any of the things you learned last time, or did you even apply any of those lessons? I mean, um, it just they're so interrelated, man. As far as those pathways that you can take through plant medicine to get to that space of examining your life from such a different perspective, almost like a third person view of, oh, this is where that behavior stemmed from. Like, it was this event in childhood where I was like, oh, I'm inadequate, or I'm not enough, so I got to overcompensate by being a people pleaser or not speaking up loud enough. Like, just it brings all this shit to the surface, dude, that we're just so oftenly repressing through escapism. And it's like we can point the finger at pot, for instance, but like, you could quit pot and quit alcohol and still be working out 5 hours a day and be an unhealthy individual if you're not working on your shadow aspects of that inner work, because your body might be looking great, you're flexing in the mirror and everything, but internally, are you great? That's the real question.
Yeah. Yeah. Enzo was asking where people can find ayahuasca. Is it available in America? Brandon was saying it's
Yeah.
South America, he said, but based like if you know the right people, you can find it out west.
Yeah, the place I went to is called Soul Quest in Orlando, Florida. They're pretty open about it. They have had people come from, I believe, every country around the world to visit and drink the medicine there. They do a great job with their volunteers of holding space and taking care of you. They have open cupboards, and you can eat all you want. You do have to go vegan for a month before, just to kind of purify your vessel. They tell you can't have sex, you can't look at porn. So you're already detoxing before you even went into the medicine. So it really prepares you, because this is a serious journey you're about to embark on. And it's no joke. Like, you're committed to this. And I think the work you put in beforehand really pays off once you get there. But yeah, that's where I went. My girlfriend went before me. Randomly told me one day, she's like, "I'm gonna go drink ayahuasca," and I was like, "No way!" I was like, "You're going down the Amazon?" And she's like, "No, I found this place in Orlando, Florida." I'm like, "What?" Like, no way. And she had already booked the retreat, and she was really struggling with alcohol at the time, and she actually just had 8 months sober yesterday.
Wow.
Thanks to embarking on ayahuasca journeys, really help and aid that. She's also been in AA ever since, so that's been a big help as well. But ayahuasca was the catalyst that really got her to seriously address that problem and stop it altogether. And she also was able to get off Adderall, which was another, affliction she had had for many years that she wanted to get rid of. And that's another one of those things that it's perfectly legal, and it's perceived as okay. It's even a party drug in college, and you can drink like a fish on it, but that shit's terrible for you, and it's essentially legal meth that we give it away as, oh, you can't pay attention, so here's some meth. Go ahead. So yeah, it was in Orlando, Florida. They also have they were in that series Unwell on Netflix. They have an episode that shows journeys at Soul Quest. So if you do have Netflix, I know a lot of people jumped off with all the censorship, but if you do still watch Netflix, go check that out. Soul Quest is an awesome place, and I've met so many awesome people through that community, and a lot of guests on my show have been people I met through that community, and just it's just been a blessing, man, to have embarked on that. That was a huge hurdle to get over in and of itself. I mean, I always saw that as the Mount Everest of plant medicine, but I have yet to try iboga, so that is one I'll try someday. But they say that's the grandfather medicine, and ayahuasca is the grandmother. So ayahuasca will be much more nurturing and loving and ease you into it a little more, I would say. She's still going to take you on a journey, let me tell you. Like, it's no easy walk, but Boga is much more stern and authoritative about the teachings and the lessons within it. It's more of that father figure role. So, yeah.
Yeah, because my mom was just recently, probably like a couple weeks ago, was talking about the whole ayahuasca thing. She's like, "Oh, there's all these people that are just taking advantage of tourists and stuff like that." So, like like you were
Yeah.
saying, like people see like the bad cases of it and then just kind of broad brush it, and so that's definitely possible. And in terms of just like the shadow work and kind of avoiding things and stuff like that, and not like opening up that closet to have all the skeletons come out to play, like you were like you were saying. Yeah, like the girl that I'm still seeing now. I was not in a good place in 2020, and I cheated on her a few times, and I really, really messed her up in that sense. And so she started seeing somebody else in January of 2021, and that's what kind of was the catalyst for me to stop porn, stop video gaming, stop all this stuff, and doing a lot of that shadow work and helping myself out. So that was a blessing, but then obviously it was still in a terrible time. Like I was doing this huge amount of shadow work. It was very dark and deep and all that stuff. And at the same time, I'm about to lose the person that I have so much guilt about because I was hurting her so much, and then my mind's becoming clearer. So I'm really even more disgusted in what I was doing. But then she's pursuing somebody else the same time that she's pursuing me. So it just really messed my head up. And like, I understood it is a lot to take in. And that's also probably why I'm so scared of doing shadow work, because it just kind of brings me back to that time.
Yeah.
And then so that was up until March, she was seeing this person. And then in June, we were dating for like 2 months at that time. And then she cheated on me with him 3 times. And I didn't find out until a whole month later. And it wasn't because she told me, it's because I found out. And so I was going to completely get rid of her in my life. But then the next day, I came back to her. But I think I'm not. And that's the thing. God, I'm about to fucking cry. Just I'm still so confused about what I'm going to do, because I don't know, like, am I staying with her because I really care, or am I staying with her because I'm scared of being alone? Am I staying with her because I don't know? Is it like, and that's the thing, I'm not sitting by myself in my room with nothing else around and really thinking about it, because I'm petrified of it. And and like, am I just wasting her time? Could she have just been moved on by now? Could have just been moved on by now? Or what is it? Like, I haven't dealt with it yet. Still, like, I'm still just kind of kicking that can down the road, and I'm not helping myself. I'm still in that almost constant, just like, anxiety. And I don't know what the right move is. Is it just because I'm still so hurt and it's just such a long process, and like, I'm just not giving myself enough patience, or is it just because I'm not looking at the books or reading books, or like trying to just get a different perspective on this and see it differently? Like, I'm still just so confused. And I had this one couple on, Danny and Vanessa of the Sovereign Love Stream, And
Yeah.
I've talked to them a couple times. I actually had my girlfriend on there, and we talked with them too for like 2 hours. And it's just I'm still just not sure what I'm gonna do, and that's
It's
probably
unsettling. Yeah.
it's definitely the biggest shadow I got right now, and I'm still petrified of doing it. Like I have this book right here. I think I got this from when I was dumpster diving, but it's called you can't see it because I have this stupid blurring thing, but it's
Something.
Released to Love
Mm,
from by Alfred E. Ells, and I just finally I'm starting to read some of it, and like I've just been, and that's probably where the gaming is coming in, and that's where the
yeah.
cannabis is coming in. That's where just me watching maybe not really informative stuff, but just other things, just getting some of that nostalgia, that comfort, and
Yeah.
part of me just wants to kind of just end things, but then at the same time, maybe I'm not giving myself enough time or whatever. But because this is the first time I've ever been cheated on, as far as I'm aware,
Mm,
and I did all the cheating. I was always the person that was causing the harm in that sense. So this is the first time I kind of got a taste of what it's like, which
yeah.
and I mean,
It hurts, man.
it's the
It's
worst
no easy
feeling ever.
task.
It's the
Yeah.
worst feeling ever. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine people at the time when I did that to them. It's
Mm.
just absolutely terrible. And yeah,
It's,
I just I'm still trying to work through that stuff at the same time, and I'm
mm.
still just so lost. I don't know what I'm doing, honestly.
Yeah, dude. I think if you can stay with someone that has cheated on you or vice versa, I think that really shows the love you have for each other, man. And if you can overcome that, you can overcome anything, man. From the bottom of my heart, man. I've been through that, man, and it's not easy. Having to come clean about that shit. Is unsettling, man. And you often get shit thrown right back at you, and you realize, oh, they were doing some stuff too. They didn't happen to tell me about. So then you don't feel as bad, but you feel good that you finally got it out and you were able to express it because the longer you keep it in and you let it fester, it's not only going to eat you alive, but it's going to eat at your relationship, and it will make you want to escape through pornography and all these other things. But I will say, dude, through the toughest moments of that long relationship I was in and I'm back in, um, it was books, man. Through the darkest moments, I remember being in my car getting kicked out. Reading Eckhart Tolle. I had two of his books. I think it was New Earth that I read through a lot of dark periods throughout my relationship, and it's hard to even talk about because it's super personal. But yeah, man, just being out in that car reading those books, hearing the lessons learned in those moments, like applying directly to my life and what I was going through in those moments of, you know, the pain is only temporary and it will leave. It's not going to be here forever, but you do have to feel it in those moments. And it fucking sucks, man. There's no easy way to say it. Like, I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. But that's what true accountability is facing that shit and addressing, where you went wrong in the past. And if you can make amends and, make it right. I think at the end of the day, man, what's best for you. You got to listen to your intuition, listen to your heart. Your mind will get in the way, your ego will get in the way. But at the end of the day, deep in your heart whether you love her or not. I know a lot of people say sleep on it, pray about it, but man, you know. And if she doesn't feel that way back, then she wasn't meant for you, and that's the way it goes. And that's a hard truth to fall on, but that's why we're here as brothers, man, to hold each other up and know that everything's going to be all right, man. We can make it through this together.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
I forgot what I was gonna say. Um, because she she definitely has remorse for it. She's totally like the way that she acts with me. She's been great. I can definitely tell she genuinely cares about me and she loves me and stuff. And when I cheated on her last year, I told her like if I were you, I would have been long gone. If this happened one time, I would have been long gone. And she stayed
Right.
around,
Yeah.
and was waiting for me to change, and I just wasn't changing. It took her pursuing somebody else for that to happen for me, which was the saddest thing for her because she didn't even think it was genuine at the time or in the beginning, because it's just like, oh, now you're gonna do it just because I'm pursuing somebody else. Well, I'm not gonna drop him because you're now gonna change. So it was really screwed up in that sense for me. And then but now that she did it to me, and then it was a kind of like a slow drip. It took weeks for me to figure it out, like exactly what happened. Oh, you saw him not just one time, you saw him twice. And I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I was like, you saw him twice, and then you were still talking to him, and then you're gaslighting me and all this stuff. And then I find out, no, it was 3 times you saw him. Oh, okay. And then you were with him the same day that you were with me after 3 days. It's like, and I still can't forgive her yet. Like it's been almost a year now, and I still can't forgive her yet.
It's a
And
lot of love games, man. It's playing tic-tac-toe. It's playing, I can do better than you can type of thing. And it's stirring up jealousy. And it's a continual cycle of, oh, he did it, so I can. Oh, she did it, so I can. And you just keep pointing the finger at each other. And I think it's evident, man, you guys still love each other. And I can hear it in your bones, man. Like, you got a lot of love for this woman. And obviously, she cares a lot about you. She's just not showing it as much as you would like right now, it sounds like. And
oh no, she has
I
been. She's been great. She's been really. I
good,
mean, there's
good.
times where like, obviously I get triggered as hell.
Yeah,
And she just try to do the best like tries to have me be the best person, and that's why like I'm doing coping mechanisms through gaming or smoking weed, or when I did some vaping
yeah.
periodically, and she would give me crap for it, and I get so upset about it. I think it has to be because I'm trying to cope,
Mm, mm,
and she's trying to stop me from doing that, but I'm not being the best person I can be. Like you're saying, like, is this what I ask
yeah.
myself with a resounding yes? This is the highest self or the highest like action I can take for myself, and it's not.
Mm,
It's coping mechanisms, and I'm getting angry at her for that, for trying to have me be better.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, she's trying to change me or whatever else, whatever kind of way I'm trying to rattle
Right.
that
That's the
around in my
ego
head.
coming in. Yep.
Yeah, and but yeah, there's still times where I'm just like, I gotta just drop this with her. But then there's times where like you're saying, like your heart feels something, but then your head comes in, your ego comes in, and
Yep.
it's just like all
Yep.
this mishmash of thoughts and emotions, and just
Just
what you should do.
learning to know where's it coming from? Where's that voice coming from? Is it my head or my heart? And that'll tell you the answer once you figure that out. But yeah, man, I think, God, there was something I wanted to say. It just lost me. Um, I would say, at the end of the day, man, like you truly love her and she truly loves you. And there is going to be some, I think where you really struggle in relationships from what I've seen is the jealousy component. Because we have this perception, and this has been decades, century old programming of, your wife or your mate is your property, like you own that. And when someone else of the opposite sex is intruding on that, there's red flags that go up. And just like you said, when she was giving you shit about like vaping or whatever it may be, like that's coming from her own insecurity. But when you take offense to that, you're admitting that to be true. You know what I mean? So you're acknowledging back by reacting to that hatred. You're reacting with, okay, well, that maybe that is true what she's saying. She really got me with a low blow. And believe me, man, I've gotten low blow after low blow. And the what I've learned is every time I react, it never ends well. Every time I respond and like just come from a place of, okay, she didn't mean that. What's the best way I can respond in this moment? And that is fucking hard because your ego in every way, shape, and form wants to come in and tell her off and say, you don't know what you're fucking talking about. I'm not addicted to this, or this ain't me. But that's your ego, man. Like, you need to speak from your heart and just sometimes take a step back from your phone, go for a walk, just give it some space and come back to it with a fresh mind and then respond. Because if you respond when you're in that state of hurt and anger, you're going to say things you don't mean, and it's just going to make shit worse. And it just continues to cycle out of control. And the only way you can change it, man, is just to be the bigger person. And sometimes that means letting her be right or letting her bully you. And in that moment, not to say that's a continual thing you let her get away with, but watch how her behavior changes as you change and as the way you respond changes, because she's not getting the reaction she wants out of you by triggering you by saying these things that you might think might be true in the moment because you're disillusioned and you're taking it personally, rather than, oh, that's coming from a place of hurt within her, so she's trying to hurt me back to make up for it.
Yeah. I
That
know.
makes sense.
It's yeah. Yeah, it does. Because I know that she, like, obviously she isn't as consumed with the stuff that I did to her as I am with the things that she did to me. Also
Mm,
because of the time gap, like that was 2020, this was 2021 when all this happened. So her actions
mm,
were at a more recent stage.
right.
Um, and this is the first time I've ever been cheated on, and it was and like, especially since I stopped doing porn and all that stuff,
Mm.
just the connection I had with her, it was just infinitely
It's night and
increasing.
day, night
Because
and day,
because
isn't it?
this is the first time I was ever being sexual with somebody without watching porn,
Yeah.
and just the amount that it meant to me was just a lot,
Mhm.
considering what it used to mean, even with her. Like, because I used to, like, in 2020, I was watching porn all the time. And I couldn't keep it up
Right.
sometimes, so totally
Right.
different scenario, like in terms of context. So
Yeah,
it's just
true intimacy. That's what we're
yeah,
getting at
yeah, yeah,
versus just fucking. Like, it might as
yeah,
well be a one night stand at that point, dude. Like, that's all it is. Like,
absolutely.
you're just getting off and, you know, leaving the room, and you want, because did you ever get that sense of like when you're in the throes of porn addiction where after you would have sex, it's like you just want to get away from them? Because I feel that that stems from a childhood wound as well of, not being enough, or, just weird things around sex, whether it was being molested, just not being adapted well, as far as being taught about sex in the household, the way you were taught about it in school, experienced it with your peers. I really never had a formal conversation about sex. It was always scare tactics like, don't you get a girl pregnant? I was more afraid of getting a girl pregnant, and the consequences being my mom would cut my head off versus actually getting a girl pregnant and like having all that responsibility. Like, I wasn't even looking at it that way. I was just so programmed into fear. So I had such a fear around sexual contact growing up, that, I'm still undoing, man. Like, it's a continual process of just feeling comfortable in your own skin, despite all the shit we went through as kids, man. It's no easy task.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, and yeah, there'd be times with not just her, but with other women where it would be like the morning, and they're still sleeping or whatever. I go in the bathroom and I'm looking at porn and I'm masturbating in the
Right.
bathroom when there's an actual
Right.
living human being laying there in the other room that would love to be able to
Yeah.
experience like intimacy with me. And I'm just doing that because I can look at somebody else, or I can look
It's
at
insane, dude, isn't it? When you
30
look
other
back on it.
people. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
gross. It's so
Dude,
gross.
a past guest of mine, his name's Derek. I can't think of his last name at the moment, but I met him at Soul Quest, the ayahuasca church, and I my third time going to Soul Quest, I volunteered, so I was on the other side of the experience, not drinking the medicine, and still experienced a lot of growth that weekend, even not participating in ceremony, just holding space. But he brought up to me his struggles with sexuality and porn addiction, and just the state of mind you're in the throes of that addiction. Of it's almost like you have like this killer instinct, like psychopathic serial killer type tendencies, dude. Like where you're literally looking at every woman that passes you by as a piece of meat to take advantage of, dude. And when it gets to that point, like God knows what you could be capable of if you continue down that path, dude. And props to you for putting an axe in it now and addressing it, man. And it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have slip ups, but to even acknowledge it is such a fucking huge step, man. I'm so proud of you for that, man. It's
Thank you very
amazing.
much. Yeah, like I haven't masturbated like since then, but I there was a couple times where I was like glancing at like photos or whatever of porn. I'm just like,
Right.
it's a great reminder. Fuck this shit, you
Yeah.
know? I don't
Yep.
need it.
Nope.
Um,
Doesn't serve you.
but yeah, in terms of like the psychopathic tendencies, I remember when I cheated on my first girlfriend because of my addictions. You know, that was the tipping point. Like I met her in 2007 in like January. We watched Casino Royale. God, that was so long ago.
Mm.
Holy crap. And I didn't see her for until the next year in the summer. And that first whole year, all we were doing was talking on the phone, you know, texting all the time. And I had
Yeah.
no thing in my head like, oh, I gotta find somebody, I gotta find a different girl because like I'm not seeing her all the time. No, it was fine, but I was still watching porn at that time. And then it wasn't until 2008, you know, that was just like something tripped in my mind. You know, it just like that new pathway that was being developed through porn just kind of solidified, you know, like that
Yeah.
concrete hardened a bit. And then that's when I got desperate. That's when I was like, oh god, like look at all these people and all this other stuff. And that's when I cheated on her.
Yep.
And then I caused so much harm, and she left me and stuff. And so I had huge depression, deep depression for 3.5 years, and then depression for another 3.5 years. So 16 to 23 years old. And yeah, there was times where of course I was suicidal, but then there's also times where I was like, I had dating like apps or whatever. I had dating profiles. Basically nobody liked me
Mm.
on there, so that didn't help out my self-esteem whatsoever for the most part.
Right.
So yeah, there
Dating
was
apps suck,
times.
dude.
Yeah, they suck so bad. But yeah, there was times where I literally would contemplate things in my head, like finding somebody on the street and possibly doing something. And it was just in my head. Like I never,
Right.
never, ever did anything,
Right.
of course. But yeah, like you're talking about the psychopathic kind of mindset. Like you just
Yeah.
get
Totally, dude.
it gets so dark in there, and your mind's just wired so off that makes
Yeah.
sense to you in some form. And
Yeah.
it's it's
Literally.
it's horrible. And then, like you're saying, with
It's
looking around
frightening.
all the time, you're
Yeah.
looking around all the time. Like when I'm driving, I gotta try still, even now. It's been over a
Right.
year of me not masturbating to porn, and I still have a hard time not looking. Or if I'm at the store, it's like I
Right.
still have a hard. It's just my mind is just it's just second nature now. It's just when I'm looking around, like if I'm looking down an aisle, like I look to see if there's a girl or something, and
Right.
it's still there, and I still gotta work my way out of that. But that definitely came from porn, you know?
Because I think some people say there's like a 3-second rule of you can observe the beauty as it passes, but like don't attach to it. Like there's more to life than just like being blindly distracted by that woman passing by the red dress, like in the Matrix, you
Yeah, The
know.
Matrix. Look again.
You know, there it is, dude. It just makes me think, dude. Think of how many like serial killers or Jeffrey Dahmers of the world just couldn't get laid, and they had all this pent up anger and hatred and disrespect for not only themselves but others, and that's what resulted in it, dude. Like it 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 can escalate to that is what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. I think it's very possible, and I've seen it in myself where it was heading and where it could go to. And hearing it from my buddy Derek, it like put it all in perspective. It's like, holy shit, like that could be a factor in so many horrific events we see in our society of, why are people acting out in the way they do as far as like shooting somewhere up? Like, what is going into that? Is it just they wanted revenge? Like, is there more to the story? Like, there is a lot of guys out there that just have no ability to talk to women. And if they're addicted to porn on top of that, it is a terrible scenario to be in because they're never going to escape it if they never change. And they just see it as easy, like, oh, I can just Google and go to this video and there it is, and then I'm done. I don't have to take a woman out. I don't have to be nice to her. I don't have to, do all the heavy labor to even get a chance to get laid, let alone get laid. Like, it's just, it puts it all in perspective, man. Just like where those tendencies can lead in the worst case scenarios.
Yeah, and that was the thing for me. Like I could, like part of me could really empathize with some of, like you were saying, like I could literally like see how people can act that way, and I can empathize with it.
Yeah.
That's when you know that
Yeah.
you're kind of screwed up. When you can,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm seeing that progress in my mind, how I'm kind of
Yeah.
descending into madness, so I can see how they
Yeah.
can get there.
Yeah.
That's not good. It's not a good sign. That's a big red
No,
flag.
definitely.
I can see why Jeffrey Dahmer like bludgeoned this woman to death in a
Right.
was it him that bludgeoned the sorority
Um,
girls? Was it Jeffrey Dahmer or was
I
it
I think that was, Ted Bundy, if
Ted
I
Bundy?
remember
Yes, Ted
correctly.
Bundy. Absolutely, it was
Yeah,
him.
Jeffrey was all guys.
Y'all
I
guys,
think he
yeah.
was I think he was
Drugging
gay,
them,
so
bringing them, yeah, with all the
yeah.
skulls and all that. Yeah, Ted Bundy.
Insane, dude.
That's what it was. Yeah.
I mean, they say he was, like, collecting animal parts in his closet when he was growing up, so he had
Yeah,
signs at a
yeah,
young
I think,
age,
yeah,
but
he was doing stuff with animals, yeah, like
who
taking
knows what
carcasses.
happened before that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it a molestation? Who fucking knows, man? I think there's a lot of shit that can set you on that path at a young
Yeah.
age if you have that trauma that's never dealt with.
Yeah. Like the mom's mindset, and then like what
Yeah.
she ate at the time, how she was feeling at the time, all that stuff, and then, yeah,
Yeah.
just the upbringing, things that you can't even remember. Because I remember stuff when I was 4, that's it. I don't remember stuff before that, so any of that stuff could still be affecting me, and I just
Right.
don't remember anything, and I don't know how I'm supposed to remember that. But,
Mm.
yeah, Enzo says maybe it's not porn's fault. I don't think it is. Is it just porn? Is it not porn, just the manifestation of anxiety? I mean, I think like for me, I would say Enzo, because you said how earlier how you watch it because it it potentially helped you not get the virus. So, um,
That's a good
um,
one.
I would say just use your imagination. Like don't take
Yeah.
it to that extreme where you have to watch another human being or 2 human beings
Right.
interacting in that way. It don't. I mean, moderation is great. If you're able to do it once a week and that's all you've been doing for years and years, I mean, you're handling it a lot better than I was. I was doing it like at work sometimes in the bathroom. It was getting
Yeah.
out of hand. It was not fun at all. It wasn't good.
I
So
think
it's total difference, but I would still just avoid it completely anyway. But I mean,
yeah. I think what was I gonna say? Like just watching porn versus masturbating with strictly imagination alone are two completely different things. Like if you can get to that point, just try it out. Like see the difference, witness it. Like there's a major difference and you feel a lot different afterwards. Like you don't feel nearly like the piece of shit you feel after you watch porn. I'm sure you could relate to this, Enzo. Like, don't lie to me, brother.
yeah, I mean, that's how I felt. Yeah, and just doing it
Yeah,
all the time, and
yeah,
I learned there's this great application. It's called Rewire Companion app, and that it has like a bunch of people that are trying to do like the whole no masturbation stuff, and so it had a
yeah,
lot of motivational things. People were like they have like a ticker of how many days they've gone and all that stuff. It had great information, and they were telling me benefits that they were experiencing, so it really motivated me in that process, which was great. And
yeah,
yeah, someone was saying, yeah, you lose testosterone when you ejaculate. I'm like, oh shit,
yep,
your testes are creating testosterone. Oh wow, wow, who would have thought? And so
yeah. It's a fucking epidemic, dude.
yeah, so for me, I realized, wow, that's probably where I'm losing all my energy. And
Yeah,
then when I was thinking about my brain fog that I was battling with
yeah,
for years, oh, I'm not using this part of my brain anymore. It's all back here. No wonder
yeah.
I'm having brain fog all the time. Huh. So it's
Mhm.
like all this confusion, all these things I tried taking, all these supplementations I was trying to take for my brain and all this other stuff and my energy. stop masturbating. And
Mm,
for me, and because I was chronically doing it, like to too much of an extent, I gained
yeah.
so much strength within 7 days. It was crazy. I was able to do like long, like really wide pull-ups, and I've never been able to do those. Like
Wow.
even when I was working
Yeah.
out all the time, I could not. I could
It's
do like
insane,
maybe the
dude.
narrow one, but I could not do like the wide ones. And all of a sudden, 7 days later, I was doing it. It was crazy, and my eyes looked different. Like it was a huge change. So like I wouldn't masturbate at all. I would just like for me, I haven't
Yeah.
ejaculated besides with a woman. That's it. And even
Right.
then, I've had times where I didn't even ejaculate with a woman. So it's a
Yeah.
huge different ball game once it goes into that aspect. But it's very it's incredibly hard. I could never have imagined that I would ever stop looking
Right.
at porn.
It
It
is.
it was
It is a
so
hard one to
terrible.
overcome.
So much
Mhm.
shame and all that stuff. But then I just could not get enough. Like, I'm just thinking to myself, I
Yep.
can't do it. I don't want to do it. But then just, yeah, that stupid thing in your mind, that those thoughts coming up. Oh, well,
Yeah.
well, this. I'll give you like 1,000 reasons why you should probably do it. It's not a big deal. Blah, blah,
Mm.
blah. And then, yeah, the normalization, like with boys. Oh, boys will be boys. No, it's shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Do you
Yeah.
understand the repercussions of this stuff?
It's a huge addiction
It's
problem
horrible. And then
all
like
around
the
the
cell
world, man.
phones, like you're saying with the cell phones. I
Yeah.
remember when I was doing a reading. I was doing like I was working at Costco and I did like a reading thing where I volunteered at a school. This is 2017. These 5-year-old kids had a better phone than I did. I'm like,
Mm.
what is wrong with your
Jesus.
parents?
That's a mess, dude.
Friggin'
Holy
big
shit.
smart, and then forget about the EMFs and all that other stuff, and
Yeah.
then like screwing up your peripheral vision when you're. It's get
Yeah.
out of here. You guys have no idea what you're doing. Get a flip phone or like one of those safety
Right.
kind of like grandma kind of phones. So yeah, if you want to communicate with them, okay. They don't need to have access to anything online in that sense. Are you out of your mind?
Right.
Have a
Right.
computer that's in the living room where everyone is in the open, so nothing can be like
Yeah.
hidden. And then there you
Yeah.
go. They have a computer. They can look up stuff if they need to for a school project. Don't give them a freaking
Right.
smartphone, idiot. Sorry, you're not.
Right.
You are an
Dude.
idiot, but you're just ignorant. You know, you don't know the repercussions of some of this stuff, so
Yeah.
you're
Dude,
responsible for it.
there's a couple things I wanted to bring up that just came to mind of number one, sex can be an addiction, man, and it can be I mean, they have Sex Addicts Anonymous. Like, I know people laugh about it, but it's funny. You can say I'm an alcoholic and people look at you one way and they're like, oh, he just had a drinking problem, now he corrected it. But it's like, you say you're a sex addict, people look at you like, oh, like that's normal. Like, what do you mean you're a sex addict? Like, we're all sex addicts. Like, no, that's not a good problem to have. Like, that's very destructive, like on our well-being on so many levels. But yeah, just the general acceptance of it, just bringing it up in conversation. Like, I'm sure a lot of people listening might be like, oh, well, this is a weird topic tonight, but I think this stuff needs to be talked about. It needs to be addressed. And the other point I wanted to say too is, like, when you get to the root of it, man, this is just one example. It's sex or porn, but we're talking about energy, man. When you get to the very root of it, like, and if you're just spilling your energy all over the place, is that like really being used constructively? When you know full and well you can keep that energy and use it to empower yourself in so many different ways. And I feel there is power in retaining that. I mean, there's so much esoteric myths about it, whether it be, the rising up the Kundalini energy, going up Jacob's ladder, being seated in the pineal, releasing the sacred secretion. I mean, you can YouTube that stuff. I'm not. Um, Knowledgeable enough about it to like speak it in an eloquent way, but I get the gist of it. And there is power to retaining your fluid, man. And there is power in that. And I think the more you retain it, the more powerful you are and the more attractive you are to other women, because you're not this pervert that's just trying to get in their pants. Like, you're actually a fucking gentleman that like just wants to give them a compliment, tell them they're beautiful, take them out to dinner, do nice things for them in an unselfish way. And that's the thing, guys out there listening, like, just do something unexpected for your lady. Like, she appreciates that shit. And sometimes we we forget, like they really appreciate when we just go out of our way to just like give them a special compliment or like say, I really love this about you. Like those little things really make a difference. And I I got to remind myself every day to like hold myself accountable in that regard, because I can get wrapped up in work, I can get wrapped up in the podcast and not be focusing enough attention on the relationship. And then, she can feel like I'm ignoring her and it just becomes a toxic cycle. So just learning to be observing of your actions and, being receptive when she's saying, you're not giving me enough attention. Like, where is that coming from? Is it coming from a place of lack and insecurity? Yeah, I'm sure there's a part of it there, but admit when you can be doing more and you're not. Like, it's not a bad thing to admit you could be doing more than you have been. Like, as men, we have this like egoic structure around us of like, oh, we can do no wrong, and our woman should be happy just to be with us, we're the shit. But it's like, you need to get off your high horse and like take some constructive criticism every once in a while, and you can give it back too. Like, that's the beauty of it. Like, you can be on both ends of it, receiving and giving it, but just be receptive when it's aimed at you, because I know it's not easy to be criticized, but obviously there is room for improvement there. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be an issue. It wouldn't even be brought up in conversation. So listen to it and try to change it. Just try to be a better dude, be a better human, be a better gentleman.
Yeah. And when you're talking about saving your essence and all that stuff, I can definitely attest to that. Where when I was like probably like 2-3 months ago, I was being intimate with this is her. I mean, she's the one that commented, Lindsay. That's my girlfriend. And when Enzo was talking about maybe porn, it's not porn's fault. She was saying she has to disagree. Look up the effects of what porn does on emotional, mental. And then she used to watch porn too, not even close to what I was doing, but just even her, she didn't. It's not like she felt great, and it did change her mind, like set to some extent from doing that. But when we've been intimate, and I went like I was saying, like there was like 7 instances where we were physical, but I didn't like finish, and totally way more energy. Like just because you have that excitement, all that energy, you don't deplete it. Like because sometimes when you finish, you're like, okay, I feel relaxed and all that stuff. I didn't, so I felt riled up and ready to go. And and it felt actually way better because I would get really, really close and I would stop. So like for me, the orgasm actually didn't feel as good as doing that. So in reality, I was feeling better and then still not getting rid of it and then having more energy. So it was like a win-win-win. But I got to start. I mean, I haven't been physical with her recently just because I've been not in a really good place mentally. So I just haven't been wanting to.
That's so important too, dude. Being in a good headspace going into those intimate moments, because there is so much give and take energetically every time you have sex. And that's why one night stands are so toxic, man, because you're taking in energy. It's like entities are attaching onto you, whether literally or metaphorically, and you're dealing with their internal demons as well after that experience for who knows how long. Those attachments can build on, and it's not healthy, man. And the only way you can be aware of that is to be aware of it. Like, if you're unconsciously just having one night stands, you're not going to see it. You're just going to think it's normal. Like, this is a part of me. I act like this. But do you really? Or was it because you've just been taking advantage of women and not respecting them whatsoever, and therefore not respecting yourself at the end of the day? Because that's where it all starts. It's like, you wouldn't be having those one night stands if you had self-respect. I had Santos Bonacci on my show many episodes ago, but he was talking about restraining before orgasm and not getting off, and he said that's all he does now. And he's up there in age. I think he's close to 60 now. I'm still 29, so I'm still learning, but I'd like to get to that point as well, man. I think that's such a powerful practice, and really takes a lot of work to get there. Like it's no easy task. Like that takes some real self-discipline, and I encourage you for doing that as well, man. That's honorable as fuck, because I always worried about the blue balls, man. That's like what's my biggest fear about that is like, well, then I'll just be uncomfortable and then I'll feel forced to masturbate. And it's like, that's not a good conclusion, but maybe I'm just psyching myself out or something. Like that's just mind games in my own head.
I really didn't experience it that much. I think it was only maybe if I don't know. I think maybe it's because I was getting just so close to it, to
Yeah.
finishing so many times that that didn't happen for me. Maybe if it was where I wasn't even close to it, but I was still extremely aroused, I think it's happened to me like that. But in those instances, I really didn't, for the most part. Maybe I did. I can't remember. But I don't really think so. It doesn't really
Yeah.
stick out in my mind. But yeah, God, it's almost been 2 hours. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
dude, this has been a great chat.
I
I
was exhausted before we even started this, and it's already been 2 hours.
Yeah, dude, I'm sorry to keep you up so late.
No,
Dude, this has
we
been
scheduled
a
it.
fucking fantastic conversation. I definitely love to do it again.
Me
How
too.
about we end on one on a positive note? We've talked enough about this, so how about any daily spiritual practices that kind of help keep you grounded throughout the chaos in the world and in your daily life?
That's a really good question. I've been slacking on doing it, but I try to do it. I try to do it when I like, because this is what I was doing when I was doing my shadow work. I was always just saying how grateful I was for everything. Like when it was cold outside at the time, I would come inside. It's warm. I'm like, oh, thank you, God for this warm house. I'm so glad I don't have to be outside. I understand that there's houseless people out there, so I'm just so grateful for this. I'm so grateful for my room and my bed and my privacy. Like being able to go to the bathroom right here with privacy. So I was able to really just I had that different perspective, that change in perspective. And me being kind of in this darker period at this moment, it's harder for me to see that positive. I'm kind of seeing in that negative light. So, but like today, I tried listing off a couple of things I'm grateful for and stuff like that. So for me, that's probably the best thing, doing like a prayer, just saying how, like, watch out for my girlfriend, my parents, my friends, take care of the people, that all the women I've hurt throughout my life, and I destroyed through cheating on them, and just saying a prayer, saying what I'm grateful for. I would say those are the things that can really help me. And I gotta be more conscious of that and try to do that more often, because it really does help me out.
100%,
Most
brother.
definitely.
It's beautiful. Attitude of gratitude, brother. So important to keep
Yeah.
every day, man. That's a daily accountability right there. Just, keeping your gratitude checklist in mind of, you know, is the shit that's stressing me out today really that big? Like, can I keep everything else in perspective of how many other things are going right in my life, that these few things that are going wrong today, like, is it is it really enough to ruin my day, or can I rise above that, alchemize it, and make some beauty out of it? I think it's so important, man. So gratitude back at you, brother, for coming on my show, saying yes, and taking their time out just to talk to me for 2 hours, man. I haven't done a 2 hour show in a while, so this is awesome.
Oh yeah.
Especially live stream, people asking questions. This has been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you reaching out, and I'd be happy to call you a friend, man. Seriously, I gave you my number, so
Likewise.
feel free to text me anytime. I love this kind of.
Likewise.
I need more motivation, talking with more men and all that
Yeah.
stuff. This really helped me out. I definitely think so, and I really appreciate it. I'm very honored for you to have reached out to me in the first place. It really means a lot, truly.
Most definitely, brother.
And yeah, I hope you have a great night. If you can just, I know it's your show right now, but
Yeah.
it's on my channel. So if you
Yeah.
could just stay when I get off, and then we can just chat for just a couple minutes before
Yeah,
we
totally, dude.
part ways. But yeah,
Go ahead and tell the listeners where they can find you as well. for my listeners when I post this?
Yes. People can find me on Facebook. You know, it's my full name, Nicholas Peter Ugero. So you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Odyssey, ODYSSE or SEE.com, BitChute.com, YouTube. I'm on Twitter as well. I think that's just NickU92 or Nicholas Peter. But yeah, I have a link tree. If you guys go to my YouTube, you guys can find my link tree that has basically all my links. Yeah, and people can just find me there. And BitChute and Odyssey would probably be the best bet because my interviews that are on there are edited, so they're improved. But I have more interviews on YouTube because those are the live streams. I have a backlog of like 9 interviews I got to edit or I want to edit. So I want to spruce them up for the more freedom-minded platforms. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you all for listening out there. You've been amazing. I love you all. And I hope you found value in this conversation. I mean, these are definitely uncomfortable topics to talk about for a lot of us. And, we need to bring them out into the open and really have more of these discussions because, nobody should be afraid to talk about this shit. Like, let's stop making it a taboo. Like, we all are dealing with this shit internally. So let's just acknowledge it and empower each other, hold each other accountable. And yeah, I hope you found some presence throughout this conversation and have a beautiful rest of the night. And thank you for listening. Peace and love.